What if the stories were true? What if there are places where the line between life and death is so thin you can still hear the echoes of the past? We're about to explore some of America's most infamous haunted hospitals. These aren't just empty buildings. They're repositories of suffering, where the memory of tragedy feels permanently etched into the walls. For years, staff, patients, and paranormal investigators have told chilling stories of ghostly figures in patient rooms, of footsteps in abandoned wings, and of voices that cry out when no one is there. These were places where medicine couldn't save everyone, where hope sometimes gave way to despair, and where thousands of people took their last breath. Some believe that not all of those souls have moved on. Tonight, we're heading into the heart of these haunted grounds to dig into the real stories from places where the dead, it seems, don't rest. We'll uncover the history that gave birth to these legends and share the first-hand accounts that still defy any easy explanation. First stop, a place that's legendary in the paranormal world, Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. Its story starts in the early 1900s, built out of desperation to fight a terrifying epidemic. Tuberculosis, the White Plague, was sweeping the nation, and Waverly Hills was built to contain its victims. It grew from a small 2-story building into a massive 5-story Gothic sanatorium, basically a city unto itself, quarantined from the rest of the world. Before antibiotics, the cures for tuberculosis were often brutal. Some patients had ribs removed to let a lung collapse and rest. Others had balloons surgically put into their chests. But the most common treatment was simply fresh air, all day, all year round. Patients were wheeled onto open porches, sometimes with their beds covered in snow, in a last-ditch effort to let nature succeed where medicine was failing. Despite everything, the death toll was immense. While exact figures are lost to time, the lore surrounding Waverly claims tens of thousands died there, though most historical estimates place the number in the low thousands. The sheer volume of death created a grim problem. Staff wanted to keep morale up, and they couldn't have patients seeing a constant stream of bodies being carried out. So they built something truly macabre, a 500-foot-long underground tunnel. Officially, it was for supplies. Unofficially, it became known as the Death Tunnel, or the Body Chute. Using a rail system, the bodies of the dead were secretly lowered down this dark passage to hearses waiting at the bottom of the hill. Today, investigators claim this body chute is one of the most paranormally active places on Earth. People report hearing disembodied voices and phantom footsteps bouncing off the suffocatingly dark concrete. It's as if the energy of every lonely soul who made that final journey is trapped down there. But the tunnel isn't the only source of strange stories at Waverly. Shadow figures are supposedly seen all the time, darting down the long, empty corridors. Volunteers working to restore the building have reported doors slamming shut by themselves and seeing the apparition of a man in a white coat floating through the halls. The most infamous spot, though, is probably the 5th floor, specifically room 502. Legend has it that the room is haunted by a nurse who died there in 1928. The story goes that she was unmarried, pregnant, and hanged herself in a moment of despair. Another version of the tale claims a doctor performed a botched abortion and staged her suicide to cover it up. It's important to note, there is no historical documentation to confirm any of these details. They are purely part of the location's legend. Still, visitors to the room report a heavy feeling of sadness and dread. Voices have been recorded on EVPs, and some people claim to see a dark figure standing near the window. Not all the reported spirits at Waverly are said to be sad or scary. One of the most famous is a young boy named Timmy. Believed to be the ghost of a child patient, Timmy is said to be playful. Visitors will often roll toy balls down the hallways and are stunned when the balls seem to roll back on their own. as if kicked by an invisible friend. The sound of children's laughter is another thing people report hearing, a ghostly echo of the young lives the plague took. From the oppressive energy of room 502 to the playful spirit of Timmy and the sorrowful echoes of the death tunnel, Waverly Hills is a monument to its tragic past. It's a place where thousands suffered, and if you believe the countless stories, it's a place where many of those spirits never left. Now let's head west to Boyle Heights in East Los Angeles, and a hospital whose haunted reputation got it typecast as a horror movie set. This is Linda Vista Community Hospital. It opened back in 1905 as the Santa Fe Coastlines Hospital, built to care for railroad workers. For decades it did its job. But as the years went on, the neighborhood changed. Gang violence rose, and the ER became a revolving door of gunshot and stab wound victims. The quality of care at Linda Vista reportedly started to slip, and rumors of patient neglect and malpractice grew more frequent. The hospital just couldn't keep up, and by the late 1980s, it had a shockingly high death rate. In 1991, Linda Vista Hospital finally shut its doors for good. It didn't take long for the stories to start. The empty, decaying hospital, full of dusty surgical tables and old bed frames, became a hotspot for urban explorers and ghost hunters. Hollywood noticed, and the hospital became a filming location for movies like Pearl Harbor and a ton of horror flicks. And that's when its haunted reputation exploded. Film crews and actors reported all sorts of unexplained things: disembodied humming, cries in the night, and shadows flickering at the edge of their vision. The very real feeling of dread in the halls made those scary movie scenes feel a little too real. Investigators and visitors have claimed countless encounters over the years. 3 spirits are reported more than any others. The first is the ghost of a little girl, said to haunt the old surgical room where she apparently died during an operation. Her small apparition has allegedly been seen standing in the room, and some investigators claim to have captured EVP's electronic voice phenomena of her singing or laughing. The second is a spectral orderly. This figure is seen wandering the long hallways, as if he's still making his rounds in the afterlife, methodically checking on empty patient rooms. And the third is the spirit of a young woman, seen pacing the third-floor corridors, her purpose a mystery, her journey seemingly endless. People on the 3rd floor often say they feel an intense sadness and the unnerving feeling of being watched. The basement is another area of intense reported activity. Investigators who have explored its dark, dungeon-like hallways describe it as cold and desolate, a place with a constant, oppressive feeling of hostility. It was down in this basement where piles of old patient files were found, some dating back to the 1930s. Silent testaments to the thousands of lives that passed through this place. Paranormal experts flocked to Linda Vista for years, hoping to capture proof of the afterlife on camera or audio. While the building was eventually renovated into senior apartments, its macabre legacy lives on. For many, Linda Vista will always be the place where the spirits of a tragic past are trapped, forever roaming the halls of Hollywood's most authentic haunted hospital. What do you think is going on in these places? Is it just our imaginations running wild, or are real spirits tied to these locations of incredible pain? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you're finding these stories as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because there are more bizarre encounters to come. Our next stop takes us to the heart of Texas, to a place with a history so dark, it's said that even reading from the Bible can provoke a terrifying response. This is Yorktown Memorial Hospital. Built in 1950, this 30,000-square-foot facility was run by the Felician Sisters, an order of Roman Catholic nuns. It served the community for decades, but like a lot of hospitals from its time, its history is marked by tragedy and rumors of malpractice. It's believed that over 2,000 patients died within its walls. After the hospital closed in the 1980s, it was briefly turned into a drug and alcohol rehab center, which only added another layer to its history of human struggle. Now it sits abandoned, and its decaying halls are said to echo with the footsteps of everyone who used to be here, both the healers and the dead. One of the most talked about spirits at Yorktown is supposedly a doctor who made fatal mistakes in the operating room. Some stories even claim he harmed patients on purpose. But he's not the only one. The spirits of the nuns who ran the hospital are also said to remain. These spectral sisters have apparently been seen in their full habits, and some male visitors, particularly those with tattoos, have reported being pushed or even scratched as if they were being disciplined by the strict former caretakers. But maybe the most terrifying story out of Yorktown Memorial is about a fearsome black specter with glowing red eyes. This menacing figure is most often reported in the hospital's chapel. In a truly unsettling twist, multiple witnesses have claimed that reading a Bible verse out loud in the chapel triggers a terrifying, demonic-sounding growl to come from the shadows. The chapel is also a place where people have heard phantom organ music and felt a profoundly dark, malevolent energy. But not all the spirits here are supposedly scary. Paranormal investigators believe they've been able to communicate with the spirit of a little girl named Stacy. The story goes that a doctor at the hospital gave her a copy of the children's book, The Pokey Little Puppy. Investigators have found that by sitting in the hospital's library and reading from that book, they can sometimes coax her spirit into activity. Some even report that she has rolled a ball back and forth with them. The hospital is a hotspot for electronic voice phenomena. Ghost hunting crews have captured a lot of chilling recordings. Disembodied voices have been recorded saying things like, "You want to play?" "The killer is coming," and a particularly creepy warning, "Don't go in the bathroom." In the basement, which many find to be the most active part of the hospital, people have reported seeing a strange black mist, feeling extreme drops in temperature, and getting an overwhelming sense of being watched. The boiler room, specifically, is the site of a rumored double murder-suicide, and some claim you can still see the stains on the wall. With its mix of child spirits, stern spectral nuns, and a supposed demonic presence in its chapel, Yorktown Memorial Hospital feels like a place of intense spiritual conflict. It's a location where the sacred and the profane seem to be locked in a battle, leaving any visitors caught right in the chilling crossfire. For our final stop, we head to Massachusetts, to a psychiatric hospital with a past so grim it sparked rumors that satanic cults once performed rituals in its basement. This is Taunton State Hospital. Opened in 1854 as the State Lunatic Hospital, Taunton was built using the Kirkbride plan, a popular design for 19th century asylums. The idea behind the long, sprawling wings was to give patients therapeutic fresh air and sunlight. But like so many asylums of that era, the reality inside was anything but therapeutic. The understanding of mental health was primitive, and treatments were often just cruel. Patients who could be institutionalized for anything from schizophrenia to postpartum depression were subjected to solitary confinement, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies. The hospital also housed at least 2 infamous serial killers, including Jane Toppin, a nurse who confessed to murdering over 30 of her patients. Given this history of suffering, it's not surprising that Taunton is considered one of America's most haunted asylums. But the paranormal claims here go way beyond your typical ghost story. The most disturbing legends are about the hospital's basement. According to these dark rumors, in the 1800s, a satanic cult led by doctors and nurses operated inside the hospital, allegedly dragging patients to the basement for dark rituals and even human sacrifices. It is critical to state that there is absolutely no credible historical evidence to support these claims. They remain a part of the hospital's urban legend. To this day, strange markings are said to remain on the basement walls, and when the hospital was open, staff claimed some unseen force would physically stop them from going down the stairs. The hauntings aren't just in the basement. Throughout the abandoned buildings, people have reported horrifying, disembodied screams echoing across the grounds. Mysterious bangs, blood-stained handprints appearing on walls, and sorrowful moans are also commonly reported. One of the most frequently seen apparitions is that of a man in a white coat who appears on the third floor of one of the buildings. But perhaps the most unsettling entity is a creature known as the Shadow Man. This isn't just a flicker in the corner of your eye. Witnesses describe it as a solid, shadowy, sometimes spider-like being that crawls along the walls and ceilings, glaring down at anyone below. This entity was said to creep into patients' rooms at night, leaving them paralyzed with fear. Though much of the original hospital has been torn down or destroyed by fire, some buildings and the psychiatric facility itself still stand. But the legends persist, a chilling reminder of a dark and violent past. From the horrifying screams that cut through the night to the Shadow Man clinging to the ceilings, Taunton State Hospital is a place where the torments of the past may have created something truly nightmarish. The bizarre encounters inside these old hospitals aren't just for paranormal investigators. For decades, some of the most compelling stories have come from the people who walk these halls every day, the doctors and nurses. These aren't stories told for attention. They are whispered accounts from the front lines, experiences that defy the science these professionals rely on. All across the country, in hospitals both famously haunted and seemingly normal, medical staff on the night shift tell eerily similar stories. They talk about faucets turning on by themselves, of lights flickering down an empty hall, and of objects, charts, pens, equipment, moving on their own. One nurse told a story about being alone at a station when an entire rack of patient charts suddenly flew off the shelf. She ran to another station and refused to work alone for the rest of the night. Patients themselves are often at the center of these events. Nurses have stories of patients who describe, in perfect detail, the people they see in their rooms, people that no one else can see. An elderly woman once complained for weeks about a man who would visit her at night. When a nurse finally asked her to describe him, her description perfectly matched a maintenance worker who had died in the hospital years before. In another unsettling account, several pediatric nurses in an old wing noticed a pattern. Multiple young patients, who had never met, all started asking about the doctor who visited them early in the morning. They all described him the same way, a tall figure with gray hair, glasses, and a white coat. When the nurses asked senior staff, they were told the description fit a beloved doctor who had worked there for decades and had passed away years earlier. Sometimes, the encounters are deeply personal. Two nurses working late one night heard their names called in a soft whisper. They were on opposite ends of the unit, and each thought it was the other. They soon realized they had both heard their own name, spoken by the same unseen voice at the exact same time. And then there are the premonitions. There are countless tales from hospital staff about patients who, despite being stable, suddenly say they're going to die, or who have conversations with dead relatives at their bedside just moments before passing away. One of the most stunning, though likely apocryphal stories, involves a patient who was declared clinically dead for nearly an hour. After the family had been sent away, she supposedly sat bolt upright, alive again, and asked for them. The nurses rushed to stabilize her, and she was able to say her final goodbyes before she passed away for a second and final time. These are just a few of the thousands of stories shared by medical professionals. They hint at a reality that exists just beyond the sterile scientific world they work in. These first-hand accounts lend a powerful and disturbing credibility to the idea that hospitals aren't just places where people die, but places where some spirits, for whatever reason, just don't leave. So, we've walked the decaying halls of Waverly Hills, the haunted backlot of Linda Vista, stood in the growling chapel of Yorktown, and faced the shadow man of Taunton. We've heard the stories from the nurses and doctors who work the night shift, witnessing things they can't explain. Each of these places has its own unique history of pain and its own unique cast of spectral characters. So, what do you make of it all? Are these just stories, born from grief and stress in unsettling old buildings? Or are we getting a real glimpse into a world beyond our own? The strange thing is how consistent the stories are no matter where you go. The little girl ghost, the orderly still on duty, the doctor who never left his post. These characters appear again and again. Maybe these places, after absorbing so much raw human emotion, so much fear, hope, love, and despair, have become permanently charged. Maybe they're places where the past isn't just a memory, but something that is still being relived every single day. The dead may not be walking among us, but in the haunted halls of these hospitals, their stories, their energy, and their presence feel undeniably and chillingly real. What do you think? Is this proof of an afterlife, or are there more logical explanations? I want to hear your theories in the comments. Have you ever had a paranormal experience in a hospital? Share your story with us. And if you want to explore more of the world's most haunted locations, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown.